A blistering brand sees Ash Sutton top the championship standings, however his lead is more fragile than a Goodyear soft tyre. This is the Brands Hatch review.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. You join us once again after, as Russ said, a blistering Brands weekend. It's been some beautiful weather, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. How quickly things change in England. Donington rained off for the most part, and Brands Hatch too hot. So
yeah, massively.
Yeah.
I hope you're all recovering from your possible sunburn. If you went there on Sunday and Saturday, it was a decent weekend of racing, wasn't it?
It was a very good weekend of racing. Yeah, I'm preparing the humble pie. It's we're at the recipe stage at the minute. The ingredients have been bought. I'm just deciding whether to go for custard or cream. A little bit more data is needed.
I was going to say, will 3 weekends of hybrid working finally turn you to say that it is what we needed?
We need a little bit more data. Things can happen at Brands anyway at the best of times. If it works at Snetterton, which is generally fairly dull, dare I say.
Yeah. I
know it's a home track, but it's not the most exciting on the calendar, generally speaking. If we get another sort of weekend at Snetterton like we've just had here, then yeah, absolutely. Then they've got it right. But
yeah, I think the fact that there's going to be so many places that hybrid can be used at Snetterton is going to make a big effect if it does work. So, but yeah, Brands was hot, as we said, and it started all on Saturday with qualifying. Now, again, we're in a Super 6 format. We will be for the whole season. So we're gradually adjusting to how it works, and it made a lot more sense this weekend, didn't it?
Yeah, and the hybrid allocation made a real difference this weekend, as we'll get to with who misses out, and the people that did miss out were people who had less hybrid. So
yep. It was quite interesting to see, with Brands being such a short track, we weren't seeing drivers come in on their first lap, especially those front-wheel drives to swap tyres. People were building their times or possibly coming in after the end of the second lap to get those times ready for that session, get the tyres prepared and try and set their fastest times to get through.
With the heat as well, the tyres warm up quicker because the track was hot. So there's that consideration.
It was noticeable as well because towards the end of each 10-minute session, we almost saw the tyres going off and being well past their best and drivers not actually improving. So in Q1A, we'll go for, there was just over a tenth between drivers 1 to 6, obviously all those drivers who got through. And across 1A and 1B, Sutton and Ingram only just scraped through in 6th position. Hill went out in Q2. He was 12th overall. And also Ingram fell foul of possibly hybrid allocation and not getting through Q2, finishing, I believe, 7th overall.
Which is good news for me, as we'll come to later on.
Yes, it was, wasn't it? 3/10 covered all those drivers in Q2, all 12 covered by 3/10, which shows you how competitive the championship is.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we know it's always been competitive, particularly in qualifying. I mean, even last year in the doldrums of touring car era, the qualifying was still pretty close.
Yeah. It was, though, a BMW weekend on Saturday. They took a front row with Turkington and Morgan. Morgan looked quick throughout all 3 qualifying sessions, and I thought maybe he might snatch it at the end. But it was Turkington rising to the top. Sutton with an absolutely incredible 4th, considering the hybrid allocation and what he had to do to get through each session. Ingram, as I said, was 8th, and Hill down in 12th. It was Turkington's 28th pole of his career.
Say it.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I know it's his 20 years in the sport, but you only get 10 qualifying sessions a year that you can set a pole position.
In my mind, he would have got more, but no, fair enough.
Yeah, 28th pole for him, and so he would be starting on the front row alongside his teammate for Sunday.
We mentioned there, we'll go into it now, about the it being a BMW weekend. There's also some rumour for the BMW weekend. Bobby Thompson was on the grid and was interviewed and seems to still be trying to get a third BMW under the WSR banner on the grid for Snetterton. So watch this space for that. Hopefully this T-shirt will help bring
you
home
channeling it.
Just channeling the deal. We all want to see Bobby back on the grid, so fingers crossed he can be there for Snetterton.
Yeah, his body language and his demeanour on the grid seemed to be the case of there was something a lot further down the pipeline rather than something that probably wasn't going to happen. And there are rumours about, as you say, obviously they're almost definitely going to be a third WSR BMW at Snap. Whether it's him, we'll wait and find out. But I'm sure we'll have some news for you before the next preview.
Excellent. Well, going into race 1 then, and Toka really have made our job difficult with the tyre rules this year, haven't they? It's so convoluted, and actually, we'll come to it. I'm not sure we need all of this, and I think we might see something get dropped as the season goes on, or certainly dropped into next season. I don't think we need to have the tyre rules in race 2 and the lack of hybrid, and the fact that you've got to run so many tyres in the weekend anyway. I see why they've done it, because last year was boring.
Yeah.
So I see that they've chucked everything at the wall to try and make it work, and I get it. But I think we're going to see one of those elements reduced, withdrawn, changed ahead of next season. If not, maybe leaving the summer break this year.
Yeah, these tyre rules are only at 8 of the 10 events, because obviously Thruxton, you're going to have to run the hard tyre because of how hard it is on tyres, and it wasn't run at the first weekend at Donington. But yeah.
Right, so we're going to race 1 then, and as you'd expect, the BMWs got off the line the best. Well, one of them did in Turkington. I'm going to be that guy and be really boring. I think the boost needs to be looked at some point, because we've had 6 races now and the BMWs get off so much quicker than everybody else, unless you're Aaron Taylor Smith in race 3. But I know it's boring. I know everyone's going to say, but
I think it kind of levels it out. Seeing what happened to Morgan throughout the race and how the tyres pulled him almost back through the field. Yes, he got into his own instance, as we'll get into. But no, Turkington went out off the front.
And he won 2 up 2 easily.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There was no challenge to him at any point in those 2 races. That's my bigger concern.
I think when you've got both the other BMWs having difficult races over the whole weekend and Turkington being out there's less inclination for something to change.
Maybe, and it didn't really help that Sutton was able to get through on Camish and Morgan early on, but his ability to chase down Turkington was arguably limited because he was on the offset tyre. So as Turkington started the race on soft, along with Camish, Cook, Watson and Hill in sort of the top echelons, Sutton started the race on medium, saving the soft for later in the day. It was quite easily past Camish, I'm honest with you. I'm still not convinced about Camish at Napa. Hopefully, as the season progresses, he will improve and look a bit more at home. But it did seem a little bit too easy for Sutton, and I can't imagine that he's got priority yet, particularly on offset strategy as well.
I would doubt it as well, yeah.
So Hill had a good race 1. This is probably the highlight of his weekend, to be honest with you. Up 3 places on the opening laps. Particularly Bolshy, but he had to be, given a poor qualifying on the Saturday. I think you said it really well, and we'll get to it from race 2 and 3, that he's already had his bad weekend and he can't afford to have another one, which is crazy. 2 rounds in, but I think you hit the nail on the head there, absolutely. Morgan, for some reason, was absolutely going backwards. And again, I know on the wrong tyre or on a different tyre, but really just falling through the field quite spectacularly.
It was weird to see it in race 1, how bad it fell through the field. And I thought, okay, it's just down to the tyre. But in race 2, where Turkington had to run that medium tyre, he had nowhere near the same problems that Morgan did in race 1. Yes, Morgan then got into a few scraps as well. But, yeah, he really struggled.
Yeah, maybe it was just a setup as much as anything else that could be the problem. And you mentioned it there. Let's go into it. He did get into a bit of a scuffle in race 1 with a bit of a silly move on Pearson. So he tried to overtake going into Paddock Hill Bend, and then Pearson tried to come up the inside, go and run it up for Druids, and Morgan completely moved across, clearly didn't see that he was there, and took both of them into the wall. Both were quite lucky to get away with very minimal damage on that one, because it just sort of caught the water glancing below, as they would say.
Yeah, and they were lucky not to take anyone else out at the apex at Druids. I think he had Chilton on his outside that he may have been concentrating on a little bit more. Pearson was trying to make the most of the situation, but Morgan just shut him off.
And he was officially reprimanded for this, received 2 penalty points for an incident with Ronan Pearson, as we said, so that's that.
Yeah.
And further up, which wasn't caught on camera, lots of things weren't caught on camera this weekend, apart from trees. Good weekend if you're is it a borist who does trees? Whatever it is. Andrew Watson got a 6-second penalty for an incident with Tom Ingram. This happened before Morgan, officially in the penalty list. Couldn't tell you what it was, didn't see it. Although he was flying, Watson. He back of the field up to the higher parts of the circuit, or higher parts of the field, sorry, but completely missed what he did to Ingram.
No, I don't think we even got a chance to see a replay on that one.
Everything would go downhill for Camish on lap 8. He got a puncture on his front soft tyre. It's a bit of a
Not
theme.
the only driver this weekend
No,
either.
a bit of a theme that was going to come on that, wasn't it? It wasn't a great weekend for the soft tyre, albeit the heat won't have helped. But we've seen this before at Brands Hatch, haven't we? We have seen it before.
And on a Ford.
And I think I might have mentioned that in the
Yes, you did.
preview, which is
you did.
always good news for me, showing that I have got some research under my belt. It's always good. De Leon was next to fall foul of something. It was smoke. His car was smoking on lap 11. Didn't look to be a puncher. It looked more to be bodywork issues, maybe brake issues.
I think it was the fact that he then came in another lap later suggests more a mechanical issue or something along those lines rather than a puncture.
Absolutely. And then the race sort of settled down from there. We had a nice battle with Cook and Ash. They're really good friends, in case you didn't know. That was only mentioned 19 times in the commentary. But they're really good friends, so that's good to know. But yeah, good battle there for second. And Hill was able to get as high as fifth with an overtake on Dan Rowbottom towards the end of the race. Turkington pretty easily taking his 68th career win. That's probably as easy as they come, really.
Yeah, he was comfortable out front. He built a big gap as well quite early on. And I think the end gap was probably about 6 or so seconds, which I don't think we're going to see much of that this season with the driver going out and dominating. But I think that battling that was going on behind really helped him just extend his lead. He was doing comfortable lap times and able to hold where he needed to be.
Well, finally for race one, then Colin Turkington won from Josh Cook, who was able to get past Sutton. Sutton in third, Jake Hill up to fourth, Dan Rowbottom fifth, Tom Chilton a solid sixth, Ingram didn't really make any inroads in the race, but did well to stay seventh on the wrong tyre. Andrew Watson eighth, Aidan Moffat, who had a poor qualifying session, he made his feelings on that very clear to everybody. He got up to ninth, so a good start for him. Aaron Taylor Smith into the top 10. Rob Huff struggled in this race. He was going backwards as well. He got as far as 11th. Sam Osborne up to 12th. Mikey Doble 13th. Chris Smalley 14th. And Adam Morgan from 2nd to 15th. Not a great start for him.
No, not at all.
Should we move on to race number 2 then, which would of course see Colin Turkington on pole, but this time with Josh Cook for company.
Yeah, so with race 2 for this season, for the majority of the rounds, the whole of the top 10 will be starting on the medium or the harder tyre.
Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Unless it's raining.
Yes, unless it is raining. I'm assuming. Otherwise, they're really screwed. So, yeah, all of those drivers would be on equal ground with tyres. Obviously, hybrid would then be reallocated, so the least amount for the winner going down to 7th, when then the rest of the field would have the full 12 laps. Hill had a great start. Managed to get Cook into Druids before his whole race sort of fell apart. Huff managed to get up 3 positions on the first lap, and it all settled down quite nicely for race 2. Not too much happened early on.
No, sort of with a nice cutback move at Paddock where he sent it very, very late indeed. We saw a couple of those this weekend, late sends into Paddock Hill Bend, which is
some of them on the edge, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Chilton in race 3 was a banzai move, but
yeah, a couple came across as a day late and $1 short, didn't they? But this was a good move by Sutton, as you'd expect.
So as there was battling between Sutton, Cook in that area, Cook managed to go off somewhere. I don't know whether he went wide coming out of Graham Hill or somewhere along that back straight, but he picked up a load of grass in the radiator, which then made him drop back because he was trying to keep the car cool. I think he took him 4 or 5 laps to actually clear it.
Yeah.
And then Hill managed to lose 6 positions in 2 laps. This, from what I saw, was mainly getting shuffled out.
Yeah, I mean, he goes for a slightly bolshy overtake, doesn't he? And then doesn't pull it off.
Regrets it.
And then that is the problem with the brand circuit flows. If you get shuffled out, you're on the wrong way for a couple of corners. It's going to sound really daft, but it's a wide track, Brands. There's a lot of tracks that aren't so wide. You think Croft, Alton Park come to mind, where it's difficult to run 3 abreast, but around here it's quite easy to get 3 abreast, and you can get yourself shuffled out really quite easily, and that's what happened.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's not enough racecraft yet. You'd have thought he'd have enough experience in the championship to know when to slot back into line or when to make that move.
I don't think he's at one of the car this year. I think that's the problem.
Really?
We saw he lacked pace all weekend here. He didn't set the world alight. Donington made a couple of mistakes which cost him in the race. He's not been lightning quick.
No.
Last year he was comfortably the best of the BMW drivers. This year you can't say that. Turkington is company the best at the moment.
Do you think they might have built the car more towards Turkington with all those changes we've seen in the off-season? Have they gone, right, we'll get Turkington his 5th championship, he'll go off after this season, possibly, and then Hill's going to become the main man?
Well, you've got to remember, of course, that Hill isn't WSR's number one priority. He's
No.
not a WSR manufacturer team driver. He's this sort of weird wing, not guest, but it's a branch of WSR, isn't it? So they're going to be focusing on Turkington, and you'd expect Morgan ahead of Hill.
Yeah.
And Hill said, I think, on his social media today, or in an interview yesterday, that he was struggling for grip all weekend with the car.
You could see it as well. He didn't have the confidence that he needed, especially in qualifying, when he just said, I can't do any better with the car.
Yeah, I think that's the main problem for him this year, is that I don't think the car lacks pace. Turkington and Morgan has been quick. I just don't think, for whatever reason, Hills has dialed into the car this year, which is a problem when you consider that Sutton, Ingram and Turkington have come out completely dialed into their cars on the off.
Yeah. Rowbottom pushed Hill into Druids on lap 9 to get past. A fairly Rowbottom-ish move in all accounts. He likes a bit of argy-bargy, doesn't he?
I'm amazed he didn't get a penalty for that.
Yeah.
Personally.
It was on the limit.
It might be because Hill didn't finish the race and he got away with it, because for me, it was on the limit. Depends who you ask. Ask some older style fans, it's a good old push to pass. Ask a newer style fan, it's a little bit naughty.
And then, unfortunately, Restart Racing had a poor 6 laps, shall we say. So first of all, Chris Smiley came into the pits on lap 9. Puncture, yeah. And then Sumpton, 6 laps later, came in as well and retired. We don't know why.
Mechanic this year, yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate because they've been running okay over the weekend, haven't they?
They look a long way off, if you ask my honest opinion. I mean,
you're
the eternal optimist and I'm the eternal pessimist, but
the only car you can compare them to is the Leon, unfortunately, and they were there or thereabouts with each other. I think that's probably where the car in their hands is going to run.
Yeah, their main thing is to score points on a regular basis, get a couple of top 10s along the way, but they, at the minute, for me, they're just a way off it.
Yeah. Cook up at the front got quite defensive. He was, I don't know whether it was a result of struggling with all that grass in the radiator. It just seemed to be backing the field up. And then on lap 16, Hill, I don't know what's broken on the car, but he was as shocked as anyone else.
I've never seen a wheel do that before, a steering wheel do that before.
Never
ever.
He goes straight on at the top of Druids. Luckily, he had brakes and everything. He was able to slow down enough, but he had no steering at all. So he went into the gravel, just nudged the barrier, and then you saw the in-car camera of him literally spinning the steering wheel.
Like a fidget spinner, wasn't it?
Yeah, just 720 degrees in one direction and then back the other way, and just not connected to the steering.
Yeah, and I think a lot was made in commentary of, did the earlier contact do it? No, I'd be amazed if it did. The earlier contact would have happened around lap 1 to 3, and this went on lap 17, do you say?
Lap 16,
Lap 16. Yeah. It's a long time for
it
to be linked to that.
I think either a bolt's fallen out or something sheared or
something snapped, a cable snapped, something, failed, and it. Yeah, I've never seen it like that before, but.
So we did have the safety car out. That meant 3 laps got added on to the end of the race. And then we had some questionable decisions, shall we say.
Yeah, so I think it's important to say that we cannot cover every battle in a podcast that lasts for about an hour, because the way the racing has been, particularly race 2 and 3, it's been fast, it's been frenetic.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of battles, particularly in the midfield section. So we'll just cover it up by saying the midfield was absolutely ace. But this, as you say, led to some quite interesting decisions that were made by the stewards.
Yeah, so first of all, Huff got a meatball flag, so that's the black flag with the orange circle in the middle, which means that a driver has to come into the pits because there is a certain amount of damage on the car that needs fixing and sorting out. So Huff, unfortunately, came in and thought there's no point in going back out. This was 19, 20 laps into the race.
Yeah, so his damage was the rear bumper on both sides was flapping.
Yeah.
I think it's harsh.
Yeah, so do I. I think it's even harsher for Cook.
Oh, Cook's even worse because only one side of it. Yeah. Cook's, in my opinion, is an absolutely nonsensical decision, and it's really...
It dropped him out of the top 10 and absolutely screwed my prediction. But that's on another level.
Yeah, but I'm really disappointed in the Cook one, because I don't want to see black and... For me, the whole point of black and orange flag is that it's not on the car that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, the point Tim made was that could come off and go through a windscreen. I'd be amazed if it could go through a windscreen. It's a piece of plastic.
It begs the question, is it something that's an issue on the Toyota?
Mm.
Because it is both Toyotas that have been affected. Are there more securing bolts that are needed, or do they just need to be a little more careful?
I would say that at Donington, the state of Osborne's car in race 3
And
Camish's car were way worse than what we saw here. I would say that the Napa bonnet still looks really floppy. And I know part of that's due to downforce, but they really don't have... So
for me,
at what point do you draw the line?
You've mentioned the Camish one from Donington. His light pod was wrapped around his wing mirror. If that comes off, that's going to cause some damage.
That's worse than a bit of plasticky bumper, isn't it? I'm not a fan. Look, I know safety first, and I get that. I suppose if it comes off, it could create a problem if another car gets a puncture. Yeah, but it's a lot of what ifs, isn't it? It's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah, if it comes off and lays in the track, then you're going to cause a safety car to clear up the debris. But a lot of these bumpers just hold on.
I was going to say, what's the likelihood of them actually coming off? That's the thing, isn't it? If you're going to start giving flags for that, you're going to see a lot of them. And that's the other thing as well. How consistent is that going to be throughout the year?
Well, already it seems inconsistent, doesn't it?
Well, quite.
And then finally, going on to lap 24,
yes.
There was a massive dive from Ingram into paddock. And it is the last of the late breakers, isn't it?
I think Tom Daly had given him some lessons because it was insane.
It was squirming under the brakes, wasn't it?
I think, again, it's just about on the limit.
Yeah.
I think that you've really got to trust the guy you're racing with. I think you've got to give credit to both Sutton and Ingram in that situation because, for me, the gap isn't overly there and he kind of opens it himself a little bit. There's a lot of rubbing.
Yeah.
Rubbing's racing.
But it seems as if Sutton's happy to do that this season.
Yes. And as I said about at Donington, this is a different Ingram this year in terms of the way he's fighting. I think that it's, as I say, it's just about on the right side of the law.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because both of them have done moves like this already this season. And if they're going to do that for the majority of the season, last year they didn't really take as many risks. When is it going to go wrong and how badly is it going to go wrong? And is that one of the reasons that this championship might suit Colin, who is better at sitting there banking the points, won't do something like that?
I do wonder if later in the season they're going to be looked upon more harshly, those kind of moves.
I hope not, because there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I agree.
But I suppose on paper that's more dangerous than a bit of bonnet flapping or bumper flapping around, isn't it? Yeah. Albeit that it was completely measured and controlled by both drivers, albeit so it was a little bit... I wouldn't say he was particularly pleased about it in the discussions afterwards.
He also certainly gave him a nudge back up into Druids, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes,
which I think is fair.
It's one of those, isn't it? That if it goes wrong, it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
But rubbing's racing. If you're a racing driver and don't go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver.
Yeah.
As the great Senna once said.
So Colin took home his second win, a double that no one in the commentary team thought we would see again this season.
No, nor Anna Gow.
And all credit to Morgan, managed to get up from 15th to 4th and was looking quick towards the end as well.
He was. So Turkington won that from Ingram from Sutton, Morgan in 4th, as you say. Never solid result for Rowbottom in 5th. He was struggling with overheating issues in race number 3 and 2 and 3 even. Tom Chilton was 6th. That seems to be his spot for the weekend.
Yeah.
Dan Camish 7th from the back of the grid, don't forget. That's a good effort for him. Aidan Moffat 8th. Mikey Doble 9th. Aaron Taylor-Swift 10th. Ronan Pearson 11th from the back of the grid. Sam Osborne 12th. Nick Halstead scoring his first touring car points of the year.
Yeah, no one can forget that.
In 13th. Darryl DeLine in 14th. And Andrew Watson, who did go backwards in this race and hasn't really had the pace in that car so far, finished 15th.
So then, grid draw for race 3 meant that Pearson was going to be on pole. Number 11 was picked out by Turkington, and it would be Pearson on pole.
Yes, as you said, twice.
Thank you.
He did. He didn't get the best start from pole. It was Aaron Taylor-Smith, who you thought had jumped the lights, but actually he just got the reactions absolutely spot on.
He lit it up. The amount of traction that he had, it was almost like a rear-wheel drive car.
He absolutely shot into the lead. But Pearson would then get back through before the end of that with a superb move at Clearways. I mean, this is a lad in his second season of the touring cars, and that move was a veteran's pass, wasn't it? He lined the gap up, little bit rubbing, but the door was firmly open.
I think you mentioned it in the preview that was Matt Neal's favourite passing place, wasn't it? And it was a typical Matt Neal move.
Perhaps Barry had given him the heads up.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I was slightly disappointed with Chilton in this race insofar as he had the best tyre and didn't really make the progress I expected him to for a multiple race winner. And someone as experienced as he is in the touring cars.
Bear in mind, he still finished second.
He did. He did. Halstead would receive a 10-second penalty, taken away with the high of race 2's points. Get a 10-second penalty for being out of position at the start, which
you win some, you lose some.
It happens to everybody, but I do think that's one of the most unforgivable reasons to get a penalty in the sport. Personally.
Do you think the 10-second penalty for that is too harsh?
I think the problem,
considering the
I think the real problem is that it's so difficult to quantify how much of an advantage you get, because if you do it at the front, then it could have, with respect to Hal said, it wasn't really going to affect anybody back there anymore. No. 10 seconds complete ruins his race back there, but do you say, well, if it's fifth and higher, it's 10, if it's fifth and lower, it's 5? It gets really complicated. So I get why I've just got a standardised 10 seconds and why 5 probably isn't enough and why a drive-through is far too much.
Yeah. So, well, I think you get drive-through for a proper jump start, don't you?
Yeah.
Which is obviously the next step up. But I don't know, sometimes a 5-second feels like a better penalty for it.
I get it, and particularly given that you can't see over the front of the car, you are relying on tape on the wall and a bit of judgment.
Really. Cutting edge technology.
But what I would say on the other hand is 19 drivers that all managed it. So that's the riposte, isn't it? There's 19 other drivers that managed it. So therefore, and that's not me having a go at House. If it had been anybody.
I also wonder whether there's the possibility of having your race engineer on the wall where you're meant to be starting, going, okay, you'll come in bit more, right, you're fine.
Yeah.
And then you're never going to get that wrong, are you?
No. I think 10 seconds probably is instinctively harsh, but we don't do 7 seconds or stuff like that. No. So I think somewhere in between is fairer, but we don't do it. But we don't do that. No. So I think 10 has to remain. Otherwise, if you're Turkington, as an example, who won both races comfortably, you might even just go, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Because I trust myself to get the gap.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Hill was struggling from the back of the grid, didn't really make an impact on this race either. As I say, it's been a weekend to forget for Hill, and he really has lost a lot of ground in the title race this weekend.
I wonder whether they might have had some issues with getting the right setup back on the car. It depends how much or what they had to change on the car from what was broken in race 2. And if they didn't get the right settings back on the car, then he may have been hampered from the start, and it certainly looked like that.
Agreed. Dobble showed the limitations of the new tyre rules this year because he had to start on mediums, having already used the soft earlier in the day.
Yeah.
And he just dropped like a stone from near the front to completely near the back. And I think that's where you see the overkill, is that if everybody saves their softs for the end, it's a bit of a lottery. I mean, I know to me it becomes a little bit too gimmicky and a bit too much of a lottery. I don't necessarily mind you have to go onto the harder tyre if you finish in the top 10 in race 2.
Yeah.
Don't mind that. But I don't think you then need to have the mandatory tyre either. I think if you finish outside the top 10 all weekend, have the softs all weekend.
Yeah, that's possible.
We actually saw, was it in race 1? We saw Huff deliberately drop into 11th so we didn't have to run the mediums in race 2.
Yeah.
I kind of think that if you finish outside the top 10, or even the top 15 maybe.
Free game.
It's free game, yeah.
Possibly.
I think so. That helps. Because I always come back to this, if you've used a soft in race 1, race 2 you're on the mediums, and some dilbert takes you out completely, you can't help it, you're a passenger, you've been taken out completely, and everyone else has saved their softs, and you're on the back of the grid. Now, on the one hand, you might go, well, that's racing.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you might go, well, that really can affect a championship or commercial ability of racing. We all know how difficult it is at the minute to get the sponsors and the budget to go racing. Are you making it a bit too gimmicky, a bit too random? I don't know. I'm not fully sold on this yet. I like the concept of the top 10 have to run the harder tyre in race 2. I like that. That's fine.
There's the risk, because if you get a good grid position from qualifying and you run that soft tyre in race 1 and you have a really good race 1, you know you're going to be on the medium for race 2, and then you have to run the medium again in race 3, then it should gradually pull you back through the field, which I can understand from starting at the front. But then if you run soft in race 1 where you've want to make the most of having a bad qualifying, you're then penalised at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it really depends.
I'm not sure we need, and particularly when you double up with the seemingly new hybrid making a big difference. I'm not convinced you need all of it, and I think that that it does probably need looking at.
Yeah.
I think, as I say, my solution would be if you're outside the top 10, you get a free choice.
I think with Dobble in this case, he got shuffled out a few times.
He did.
Showed a little bit of a lack of experience at hand-to-hand, car-to-car combat. And the pace on top of that didn't help.
We then saw Ingram in his first drive of the year. He locked up going into Druid, so you perhaps thought, okay, he's just locked up. But then we'd see a few corners later, smoke pouring from the front of the car. Difficult to know if it was brakes or bodywork, but he wasn't.
It's weird because it came from the front right-hand corner, and it didn't look to be any sort of puncture or anything like that. And then a lap later, he's got a puncture on the front left. Now, front left is where we saw Camish's puncture. He was also on the soft tyre for this race, and you wonder whether they've gone too far on setup, been too edgy, or whether he's just picked up a piece of debris.
I think this also is a problem for the tyres. Going back to my previous point, there's a lot of punctures this weekend. If the tyres can't be guaranteed to be strong enough, then to me, there's been too many this weekend for it to be coincidence. So people are saving the soft tyre, but they can't be guaranteed it's actually going to work in terms of is it strong enough? Because
when you look at the percentage of cars that have had an issue, I
think it's high for a touring car weekend.
I don't.
It's not Thruxton.
I know it's not Thruxton, but one, it's been very hot this weekend.
Yeah, there is that as a factor.
And so running tyre, it's very difficult to judge what your tyre pressure is going to be as to what you need to start the race on, what you allow for it to go up to. And then if you're running on too high a tyre pressure, it's going to be easier to pop a tyre. We didn't see that many instances of bodywork or any debris or stuff on the track, so I think it's unlikely. Possibly down to curbs. Depends on curb usage, especially going down Paddock Hill. You run over that outside curb, it could easily cut a tyre. It also does depend on how soft the compound is.
Yeah, I think there's some questions to be asked of the supplier to check they are going to be robust enough if these rules are going to be adhered to.
Unfortunately, it's part of the reason that we have to run the hard tyre at Thruxton as well. Because we know it's too much for all those tyres.
But everyone runs it, so it's negated, isn't it? So that's fine. Yes, but as you say, Ingram would then pit with a puncture, would come back out later to do the fastest lap, so whatever had gone wrong in the car was presumably fixed. Moffat was next to full foul of mechanical problems. It would transpire that a boost pipe had popped out on the way to the grid, and during the race it popped out again, presumably, which is a shame because he was running well at that point. He was nailed on for a podium, probably nailed on for P2, if not higher.
His pace this weekend was decent. He knows he didn't have good enough qualifying.
So did the team.
So did the team, yes. He was pretty ill speaking of the team after going out in the early part of qualifying. And for this, I don't know whether you can call it a mistake for it not to have been done up properly. It's lasted almost halfway into the race before it's then popped off. It depends on temperatures and stuff like that.
The problem is it comes out on the way to the grid. They've only got a finite period on the grid to sort this thing out. How hard a fix is it? Is it a case of just popping it back in and doing it up, or is and hoping for the best, or is there actually a bigger system which they couldn't?
Yeah, it may well have been a broken seal, or some of these boost pipes have a metal ring on the outside. It may have become worn. It's really difficult to determine what the actual fault was.
Yeah, this is it. So, he was quite vocal on social media afterwards.
Certainly was.
Frustrated, and I understand the frustrations. They are errors you don't expect from a manufacturer's team. However, this is the same team that got him to the top step of the podium a couple of weeks ago. So, there's highs, there's lows in motorsport racing, isn't there? DeLyon had the sort of weekend this weekend with feeding Maiden Donington, really. Another mechanical failure in race 3. Hopefully it's just a bad weekend and he can move on to bigger and better things. It's not a sign of things to come.
Yeah, there wasn't any bright sparks from him this weekend either. He wasn't amazingly on the pace in qualifying. He was about where the other Cupras were, and having a few little battles there or thereabouts.
That pretty much concludes no, it doesn't. Sorry, Chilton's move on Aaron Smith. I do apologise. Robust, shall we say?
On the very limit. I thought Ingram's move on Sutton was on the limit until Chilton made this move.
I think personally this move goes over the limit and should have been punished. It's my personal opinion because for me, I'm going to use the phrase again, a day late, a dollar short. I'd say he's out of control. I do think in mitigation that the curb unsettles Chilton's car into Paddock Hill Bend, which sends him more into Aaron Taylor Smith's car panels. For me, that the fact that he's out of control makes it, in my opinion, punishable because he's not. I don't think he's got full control of the overtake, which makes it.
I agree.
Dangerous.
I don't think he's got full control of the overtake, but there are a couple of caveats.
Yes.
In the fact that we know how bumpy it is going into Paddock Hill, we see that little bump that Ingram locked up on in the previous race.
That's a Chilton problem.
I know. Okay. But also the fact that Aaron Taylor Smith, after the race, came up to him and went, good move.
Fair. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
And fair play to Aaron Taylor Smith for that. It was great sportsmanship on his behalf. And absolutely tip of the hat. Because, I don't think I'd be as happy after the race, to be honest with you.
I do wonder whether he'd seen the replay or whether his team had told him about it. I think there was enough room for Chilton to go down the inside.
There was enough room.
And both of them went sideways.
There's enough room for him to go down the inside. I just don't think he did the overtake well enough. And that's why I think, in my opinion, it was probably punishable because I don't think the overtake was done fairly cleanly or under control. And therefore, I'd argue he's out of control and therefore it's potentially penalty worthy.
I think Chilton's argument to that is that he was more than halfway down the inside. But how you get to that point is
you could
probably the issue.
Yeah, you could be halfway down the inside if you choose a T-bone.
Yeah, I know.
doesn't make it correct. But and then of course Sutton was able to sweep past Aaron Taylor Swift, so thank you very much indeed. Which made me a very happy boy, which we'll get to in a moment. So,
certainly did.
Just a quick word on Ronan Pearson. He won this race with minimal fuss, really, and a really mature drive from the young man, isn't it?
It was good to see that after that poor start in comparison to ATS, that he was able to fight back as soon as he did, and not just wait for the race to come to him.
Yeah, agreed.
Because he could have well gone, okay, he's got that good start, I'll wait and bide my time, but he was on the offensive rather than on the back foot.
Yeah, a very mature drive indeed, and I'm sure that will be one of many race wins to come for him. So congratulations to Pearson. He joins the touring car winners circle, so really well done to him. So he won the race from Tom Chilton, a 1-2 for Bristol Street Motors that didn't include Tom Ingram, which was,
You wouldn't have predicted that, would you?
Absolutely not. Ash Sutton makes it 6 from 6, which I think has gone slightly under the radar. He's not won a race yet.
No.
And that question was put to him in harrowing detail by Louise at the end of race 3, but he's 6 from 6 on the podiums. He looks fast, and he looks like he's going to be a bit more I think he knows the game this year in terms of how he's got to score points. And as I said in the intro, he is top of the championship.
The fact that Ingram and Turkington have both taken double wins and are not at the top of the championship already shows how good and how consistent he's been.
Absolutely fantastic point. Aaron Taylor Smith 4th, Dan Camish 5th, Dan Rowbottom 6th, Andrew Watson 7th, Colin Turkington 8th, so he did get a few places in the race. Rob Huff 9th, Adam Morgan 10th, Josh Cook 11th. He didn't really get through the field like we expected.
No.
Jake Hill 12th, Chris Smiley scoring points in 13th, Scott Sumpton getting into the points in 14th. Good drive from him because he was at the back of the grid into there.
Helped with difficulties for other drivers, but yes.
Yeah, Mikey Doble finished 15th in the end. Sam Osborne finished 15th on the road, but got a 10-second time penalty for track limit infringements.
Yeah. We saw quite a few track limit infringements in the Porsches this weekend, and a lot of 5-second penalties were given out in race. But this was subsequent to the ending of race 3.
Right, shall we do awards?
Yes.
Then we can finish off on where we are in our predictions.
Yeah, you'll be eager to get onto that bit, won't you?
Well, I think actually I've not made any mileage in it.
Okay.
I think because you've also got the same amount of me, just slightly less glamorous.
Right, driver of the weekend then.
For me, you're mad that it's not him. It's Colin Turkington. He's won 3 out of the 4 sessions that count. And in race 3, he scored solid points, which have seen him 2 points off top now.
Yeah.
Last year, we criticised him quite a lot. I think it's fair to say. This year, he does seem a lot more at home with that car. And It's slightly ominous.
I've gone for Sutton, mainly because the performance that he put in qualifying was beyond expectation, considering how little hybrid he had and stuff.
Yeah, the odds were stacked against him, I'll give you that.
Then in the first race, he's on, quote, the wrong tyre and still manages to come out with a podium.
Mm-hmm.
And then in race 2, he does what he needs to take that podium, again, on the wrong tyre.
Didn't push Turkington enough for me in race 2, though. That's my criticism of him.
And then in race 3 was the driver to make it furthest through the field on that soft tyre from the position he was in. Obviously, Ingram was there with him, Turkington was there with him, and he's 5 places up on Turkington.
Yeah, Turkington was on the soft, though.
True. But I think he's had a really good weekend.
I agree he's had a good weekend. I think we were quite critical of Colin last year, and I think you've also then got to recognise when he's been quite good.
Yeah.
But it's a game of opinions. Who was your villain of the weekend?
My villain of the weekend has to be Hill. Some of it through no fault of his own, obviously with that failure on the car, but he just did not look at the races this weekend. And considering it is also his home circuit, he's grown up there, watching drives go round, probably done the most amount of laps of any circuit in the UK because it's his local one. I was expecting a lot more from him, and the fact that both Turkington and Morgan outperformed him in speed this weekend is quite surprising for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I've gone for the ITV camera work. I thought replays...
It's not quite the same wording that you've put down there.
Family friendly.
Okay.
I think that we got hardly any meaningful replays. I'm sick to death of this shot looking behind the car when they're trying to show an overtake. Yeah, there's no point showing me the spoiler.
Do you know what angered me more?
Go on.
The trees.
The trees are Druids. Yeah, that was annoying as well, yeah.
What? I don't understand why you would have that camera pointing up towards Druids from, I don't know whether it was pits or whether it was hospitality on the other side, and you have to search through the trees to find out what the drivers are doing. Just cut to the one at the top of Druids.
Yeah. I agree with you. That was really frustrating. I don't think we got particularly good replays. And it's almost like they listen to the fact that we want more cameras on cars, but they just put them in the stupidest of places. There's no point showing me a side-by-side overtake. For example, I don't think they did this, but there's no point showing me Ingram's move on Sutton from the rear view camera on Ingram's car. It shows you nothing. It's completely unhelpful. Rubbish.
Yeah. Surprise good?
We'll both agree on this.
We agree.
Tom Chilton.
It was a brilliant weekend for him.
Really solid.
I was quite surprised that he took,
2 top sixes and a podium.
2 top sixes and a second, although you thought he should have done possibly better in that final race.
I think he should have done better in the final race, insofar as that if you put him and Pearson, you'd expect Chilton to go on top.
Yeah.
He didn't really put any pressure on Pearson.
No.
Do
you think that this small upturn in form might be due to Barry Plowman being on board?
At the risk of repeating myself on other things, I think we're only 6 races in. Okay. I think we need to see. But I would agree with you that Chilton has had a far more promising start to the 2024 season than he did in 2023. Albeit, what's a good weekend for Chilton now? He's clearly not going to be a championship contender.
I think a good weekend is 3 top 10s.
It's quite a low bar because there's only 20 cars on the grid.
Yeah.
This is an exceptional weekend where Chilton is, yes. Yeah. I think he will pick up a few more podiums this year. I
think the fact that he was able to keep pace with Ingram in race 1 and 2, there or thereabouts, and then make the most of race 3, is good for him.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you on that. And then surprise bad.
Yeah, I've gone for Osborne. Nappa's home track.
Yeah, but Harvey ruined his car.
Yeah, Steve Ryder let him know about it.
Absolutely.
I just wasn't overly impressed with Osborne's performances this weekend.
Just this weekend?
I was expecting more. Obviously,
this weekend?
You were expecting him to win the Jack Sears this weekend.
Yeah, and if he could keep the car on the blinking circuit, he would have done.
Yeah, and he just wasn't at it.
Yeah, fair enough. It's not been the greatest of starts to the 24 season for Osborne. I'll go for Toyota generally. Now, you might say, well, could have got a podium and Huff did okay in race 1. Yeah, but what happened after race 1?
Yeah.
Weren't particularly quick in qualifying.
No.
I expect a lot more from Huff this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
A track that he knows, and I know he's got to go back up to speed with this version of touring cars. And Watson had a good race 1, but say fine, but
there seems to be fleeting glimpses of pace.
yeah, there does. It doesn't seem consistent, does it?
And yeah, there's I don't know whether there's some fragility in that rear bumper across the Toyota.
Yeah,
but that really didn't help in race 2.
Yeah, and Cook is unlucky in that sense. I agree with you. Cook is unlucky in that sense, but in race 3, he was unable to make any real ground. I think you're right. I think at the minute, are they flattering to deceive, or is it just a bit of inconsistency that they're trying to iron out of a 4-car team? I don't know, but I'd say at the minute, Moffat is probably the most impressive of the 4, which I don't think many people would have thought coming into the season. I mean, you know, Cook is.
He's been the most consistent and held the most amount of pace, I think.
Yeah, I think he has. So I expect to be more from Toyota, and I'm not expecting much from Senate since it's not a track they generally go well unless you're Ricky Collard. So
I don't know. Ingram always used to go quite well in the Corolla there.
Ingram goes well everywhere, Sam. Well, yeah, he's a very good driver, as it turns out.
Yeah, funny that.
Right, should we rifle through the predictions then? So
yes.
I went for pole, Tom Ingram, which didn't go well.
No, but I think we've learned from this weekend, haven't we, that hybrid is going to have more of an effect.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I went for race wins for Sutton, Turkington and Cook. So actually, I got 3 podium sitters, which is really good. But no, I only get the 1 point there for Colin Turkington, so on 1. And I went for Jack Sears Osborne, which he did win, however, lost it after the 10-second penalties. So just the 1 point from those bits. You went for...
Oh, my Napa domination was nowhere.
Yeah, really bad. So
nowhere this weekend.
You went for... Thank you for knocking over everything in my...
Just the remote.
Thank you. You went for Sutton pole, Sutton win, Sutton Jack Sears. No, you went for a Camish win and Pearson Jack Sears. I was surprised Pearson didn't win the Jack Sears, but race 1 kind of put pay to that. So you get nil points on that, unfortunately. So that's unlucky for you. So I'm on 1. And in my general predictions, I did just so well on this weekend.
Yeah.
Triple podium for someone. Ash Sutton didn't let me down.
Coming in clutch right at the end.
Thank you, Tom Chilton. One of the big 6 misses the fast or quick 6 qualifying.
I think that might happen more consistently now this season.
Yeah, I agree, but I took the gamble.
So I might have to bank that on at some point.
I took the risk. I took the risk and it paid off. And House will score points. Now, I don't want to go too long on this. How do you feel about, not just House has scored points, everyone has scored points now after 6 races.
Yep.
We discussed this on, I think, the season preview. They've got to do something about the smaller grids, less points, haven't they?
It won't be happening this season because it can't structurally.
No.
But yes, I think if we're going to predominantly have a grid that is 20 or 22 cars, then we're going to have to probably drag that points total back down to maybe 12.
I'm thinking 12.
And make those points more worthy, shall I say?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Although, to be fair to Halstead, great effort for him to get to 13.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not a picking on Halstead.
And still finished ahead of Sumpton and Smiley, I believe, in that race.
Yeah, so this is not a pick on Halstead show.
No.
It's just that I can't remember a season where everybody scored points on top of my head. Not recent.
Not this early, no.
Yeah, not this early either.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, no problem at all. And then in terms of the safety car, I went for 7 laps with get added on, which was wrong. We didn't get hardly any safety car action this week.
No, just the one in race 2, which meant 3 laps got added on in total.
Now, did you do your maths?
Did I do my maths?
Yeah. Did LKQ Euro car parts with Cinetic outscore Toyota GI?
I haven't done my maths, no.
Have you done the maths now?
I have done the maths now, yes. It was closer than first anticipated. So LKQ with Cinetic car parts, all
Euro, Sports,
Starline,
Enterprise.
They combined scored 37 points this weekend, and Toyota Gazoo Racing scored 30 points this weekend.
So you do get a point. Congratulations. You, however, don't get a point for Cook with 3 top 10s.
No, that was put to pay to... I wonder if he hadn't had that meatball flag, I might have just got that.
But... To quote Max Verstappen,
I know.
If my mum had balls, she'd be my dad. So, and a Napa podium that wasn't Sutton.
Yeah, I was really banking on Napa doing well this weekend, and they really didn't bring the pace.
Well, they didn't. I just think that the problem is, we said it before, that those 3-4 drivers are just going to dominate this year. It's going to be a battle for the ages for them, which means that you get no points for that. And then you went for 5 laps into the safety car. We got 3 overall, which means you get a point for that, which means that I'm on 6 points and you're on 6 points.
Yes. level again.
into going to Snetterton. Right, have you got any closing thoughts at all?
Dare I say, I hope we get a little bit of cloud cover at Snetterton because we're going. And I don't want to get burnt to a crisp. Yes, we will be in the hats.
Might be required. But yes, no, you're absolutely right. I too. We have been to Snetterton when it's been stiflingly hot twice, and my God, it's hot. When it's hot at Snetterton, it's hot.
And it could well be the round that we finally find out whether hybrid is here to stay and here to work properly.
This is the track where I'll be pinning my colours to the mast, as they say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tail on the donkey or something.
Yeah, if it works here, then I think they've cracked it.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. Let us know who your driver of the weekend was, your villain, your surprise good, and your surprise bad. The expectations that you've got for Snetterton. Let us know if you're going. We will be there one way or another. And it's another birthday weekend celebration.
Yes, my second birthday. It is your birthday weekend. Yeah, looking forward to spending some time at Snetterton. And it's bank holiday weekend, which is great. Which means that if anything overruns, it's not too bad.
No, and we can have a podcast out for you the Monday after.
I think it's a pint.
That as well.
We can have a pint as well.
But yeah, we'll be back with you for a preview for Snetterton, and in the meantime, we may look at bringing you a support package update. Now we are a little clearer on the drivers, the runners and racers for each of the events. But until then, we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.